the way we use these cost of capital, it doesn't make that much difference whether the cost of capital is 12% or 12.1%, okay? Or 12% or 12.5%. If I'm using it for capital budgeting, I can say, okay, even a worst case scenario, margin of error is about 0.5%. I'm going to make calculations using the worst case scenario. Instead of 12%, I'm going to use 12.5. If I get pretty much the same decisions, then I don't have a problem with that decision. Or when I'm valuing a firm, 12 versus 12.5 on the cost of debt is not going to make that much difference on the value of the firm. In any case, if you find that the firm is worth $100 per share and it's trading at 95, you probably should not go ahead and buy that, okay? Because there are so many things that you estimate that $5 potential profit is probably within the margin of error of the whole things. But if your valuation of the firm is 200, the stock is trading at 95, I don't particularly care whether the cost of that is 12 or 12.5. It's not going to make that much difference. Hence, these are probably the best estimates of pre-tax cost of debt. For publicly available stuff, you have information only on, large groupings, but these credit ratings also have, finer designations. For example, you could be BB plus. That means you're still under investment grade, but you're just a notch below it. In fact, you could be a BB plus with a positive outlook. That means next time there's a new credit rating, there's a chance that you could be investment grade. Getting yield estimates or spread estimates for such fine groupings are not free, but if I'm a firm that does a lot of equity research, I could afford a subscription to S&P or that kind of information. But again, it's not going to make that much difference to begin with. If you're actually trading these things, that's a separate issue. And then you need that kind of information. Let me tell you an anecdote. I tell this in a lot of my classes. So I don't know if I ever told you this about the power of the average. Do you guys know a story of a nuclear sub that U.S. lost back in 50s? Somehow a nuclear subs sank. This wasn't a missile sub. Nuclear sub means it's a sub that has an engine that's powered by, nuclear reactions, nuclear reactor. Those days, the Soviets didn't have that technology yet. I mean, they had the bomb, but they couldn't make it small enough to put it in a sub. The difference between nuclear and diesel subs need oxygen. So every once in a while, they have to surface. That means they do a lot of noise. Nuclear subs don't make a lot of noise, and they're not easy to detect. So they have to find it before the Soviets find it. It's somewhere in the Atlantic. They think it's within an area of a circle of 100 miles in diameter. That's a lot of ocean bottom to search. I mean, if you can go ahead and calculate its diameter square times pi, right? So it's going to be about 31,000 square miles. That's almost That's bigger than the size of Kentucky, I think. Anyway, they spent months, they can't find it. They're about to give up. As a final gasp, one of the captains in Pentagon says, okay, bring all the experts into one room. I don't remember how many experts. He asks them only one thing or two things. He says, put your best estimate of where the location is. The location is a latitude and a longitude. Everybody puts them on a piece of paper. He averages the latitudes, he averages longitudes, so he gets the average location. They find it within about 200 feet. Why? Because all of those estimates make errors. But their errors, since they probably are using A, different methods, B, different source of information, are not correlated. So when you bring the average, you're basically using a much larger information. So averages are very powerful. You can also find it in forecasts. There are a lot of economists who forecast inflation, for example, right? And some of them are really good. But if you average all those forecasts, the average in almost all cases is a better forecaster than the best of the forecasters. Why? Because it uses a much larger set of information. So law of large numbers is a good thing. That's why when we look at, for example, sometime on Monday, BioNTech, the maker of the Pfizer vaccine, is going to have their 2022 financials announced. Currently, the estimate is $37.62 per share, or for the fourth quarter, $8.96. But there's a big variation, okay? Anywhere from 572 to 1053. Or on the annual one for this year, anywhere from 3375 to 4086. The range is not that big percentage wise because you already know the first three quarters. Some of these forecasters are really, good forecasters. But almost always, when you look at the performance of individual forecasters, almost always the average beats even the best of them. Why? Because it collects information from different sources. I mean, in this case, annual wise, 14 analysts are making estimates. All right, let's stop here today. On Monday, we're going to start talking about cost of equity capital. For that purpose, we're going to introduce the concept of capital asset pricing models in general. And we'll go from there.